Your daily dose of sports talk is here. Highlights, interviews, and analysis. From the entertainment capital of the world, SportsWrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does, and great to have you with us on this Friday edition of the show with a lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Friday's always busy. Glad you're joining us across the U.S. and Canada on over 260 affiliates or wherever you may be watching, courtesy of our YouTube channel, the SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Glad to have you with us. As I said, a lot to get to. Tino Patino later on in the show. We got a NASCAR race in Austin, Circuit of the Americas, the Shane Van Gisbergen course, basically. I mean, he is your road warrior, so obviously a big favorite there. We'll handicap the race a bit with Tino Patino, get his thoughts on Tyler Reddick's latest win to start the NASCAR season. He's won 2 in a row, Daytona 500 in Atlanta. We'll get into that coming up a little later on. It's a Friday, which means Robert Littal is here, the founder of Black Sports Online, always contributes to the program on Friday. Get into some of the top stories of the week for him, including Stephen A. Smith, who just can't quit LeBron James. We'll get to that a little later on. Plus an interesting story with the FCC maybe coming after play-by-play rights, not liking the fact that they're all migrating towards streaming platforms. We'll get into that, what it all means as well with Robert Littal. A whole bunch more there. NFL talk, Anthony Richardson given permission to seek a trade by the Indianapolis Colts. It's amazing how fast things can change over a course of a few years in the career of Anthony Richardson. We'll get into that and more from the NFL. But we start things out as we always do on this Friday edition of the show. It's time for the big story. And the big story today for me is the New York Giants. And this is something that is very personal to me on a number of levels. I grew up watching the New York Football Giants. They were the team I rooted for. There aren't many things, from a sports rooting standpoint that I'm incredibly passionate about these days. The New York Giants were still one of those few things from a rooting interest. Yeah, there's the Yankees, who I'll always get excited about. But the Giants were that other team along with the Knicks. And I have to say, I've just finished a column on this for the folks over at MS Now. So if you want to read my full thoughts on this, head over to MS Now, check out the opinion section. I'm a columnist there. You can read what I had to say. But here's the thing for me. I grew up a Giants fan, rooted for this team for the better part of the last 40 years. And I can't root for them anymore. Yeah, I know the helmet is still behind me. I got to find something else to replace it with on the wall behind me. But I can't root for the New York Giants anymore. The way they have handled, as a survivor of sexual assault, childhood sexual assault, as it would be, I can't root for a team that has basically decided to take we're going to do the ostrich thing, stick our head in the sand as far as we can, and go, la, 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 I don't hear you, when it comes to the relationship between Steve Tisch and Jeffrey Epstein. And you've been watching the news over the last week. You can't avoid the stories about Jeffrey Epstein. You had the Clintons out there talking to, different congressional committees and stuff like that. And you've seen the news about people that are losing their jobs. You've seen the news about people that are resigning from positions, whether it's Larry Summers at Harvard, somebody who used to be prominent in political life and then prominent, obviously, as well, when it comes to teaching at Harvard and being one of the faces of that university. Whether it's the president or the CEO of Hyatt Hotels, the CEO or executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, Prince Andrew overseas. We've seen the drumbeat of people whose livelihoods have been stripped away or resigned or have been shamed publicly for their relationships with a man who is as detestable as any in the history of me covering news and sports, in Jeffrey Epstein. Yet the New York Giants have taken the approach with the co-owner of their franchise in Steve Tisch. And so far the NFL has taken an approach with the owner of a franchise in Steve Tisch to just basically say nothing to see here. First, you had Roger Goodell answering questions at the Super Bowl press conference where he said, yeah, we're going to look into it. We're not going to put the cart before the horse. We're not going to talk about any sanctions. We're going to look into it under the personal conduct policy. 4 weeks later, crickets. The New York Giants kind of sort of put out a statement through Tisch after the revelations in the Epstein files came out. And Epstein and Tisch said what he had to say. And again, it deserves to be mentioned. There is no evidence or any legal allegation of wrongdoing. But there wasn't any in the case of Larry Summers. There wasn't any in the case of the Hyatt CEO. There wasn't any in the case of the World Economic Forum. And so many other people who have been castigated and cast aside as a result of their relationship with somebody who in 2009 was getting out of prison for soliciting a prostitute and then soliciting and using a minor as a prostitute. That was 2009. Steve Tisch was corresponding and using Jeffrey Epstein as a matchmaking service in 2013, 4 years later. You knew who he was. If that isn't enough for Roger Goodell in the NFL right there, what the hell do you need? To know that this guy brings shame upon your league. For the Giants, shame upon your organization. If you're not the Maras and walking into a room and saying, really, Steve, we know you've had the thing in your family and the team in your family for all these years, but it's time to go. We've seen owners. We've seen Roger Goodell as a collective put pressure on Daniel Snyder in order to get him to part ways with the Commanders. It's time for owners, Roger Goodell, to step up, do the right thing when it comes to Steve Tisch. He cannot be half of the ownership of the New York Giants anymore. And just a note for John Harbaugh and Joe Schoen, I don't expect you to crush the owner of the team that you're working for, but at least say something when you're asked by the media about Tisch's relationship with Epstein. At least say something that shows the slightest bit of sympathy for the victims of Epstein. Because you didn't do that when you had the chance to this week. And frankly, that's disgraceful. And that's why I can't root for the Giants anymore, and I won't. That's the big story. We got more to do on this Friday edition of the show. Stick around. Sam Yarnell's here. We'll talk some NFL next. Welcome back to this Friday edition of the show. Still to come, Robert Littal, the founder of Black Sports Online, joins us every Friday. Tino Patino talks NASCAR later on as well. Circuit of the Americas, which means Monday we'll be recapping a Shane Van Gisbergen road win. That's about right, Sam Yarnell? Even you know that.
That's all he does is win road courses.
That's it. He's been, I have to say, though, he's actually been pretty good. I think he was like top 6 or top 7 last weekend in Atlanta. So he's starting to get better at the ovals as well. Sam Yarnell, we didn't bring you on to talk about NASCAR. Let's talk some NFL. Anthony Richardson. Yeah, it's amazing how quickly things can change in life. If 3 years ago, I had said to you that the starting quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts in 2026 would be Daniel Jones, that Anthony Richardson would be looking for a trade and basically be out on the street, I mean, you would have had me, peeing into a cup somewhere. I mean, it's insane the way fortunes can change and why, for all the prognosticating we do and all the trying to figure out and project where guys will be in 3 or 4 years. It's like the old classic job interview question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? If somebody had asked that to Anthony Richardson, he certainly wouldn't have said looking for a trade and hoping to just get a job anywhere in 2026.
Yeah, and Jason, it really is just kind of, I don't even want to say a comedy of errors because it's not. It's comedic misfortune with Anthony Richardson. It's like, how do you get as unlucky as Anthony Richardson has, quite frankly, since he left Florida. He was an incredible talent at Florida. People who watched him play at Florida thought that he could legitimately be the best quarterback talent in his draft class. This is a guy who has more than enough raw tools to be a serviceable starting quarterback in the NFL. He was drafted to a horrible situation, the worst of the worst when you're talking about situations to get drafted into the NFL. And then you go beyond that, he has to deal with a regime change, and then you have to deal with the ownership passing down throughout the family, right? And then you go just within this last season, he's due to become the starter when Daniel Jones deals with not only the broken leg, but then the torn Achilles. And you're like, oh, well, it should finally be Anthony Richardson's time, right? They've got a competitive team. They've got a good team trending towards the playoffs. But Anthony Richardson broke his eye bone 4 weeks ago because a resistance band snapped in his face. Like, it is just hilariously bad luck that Anthony Richardson has had throughout his NFL career so far. I'm very excited to see him hopefully get a meaningful opportunity somewhere else.
It's like Final Destination stuff, taking out your eye with a rubber band, with a resistance band. It's like something you'd hear about in Final Destination. I just don't know where it even makes sense for him right now. He's going to have to go be a backup somewhere. He's not going to be a starter anywhere. He's not even competing for a job
Arizona?
anywhere. We just want to dump everybody in Arizona, don't we? Is Arizona going to become the dumping ground for
Miami?
Is it going to be the Cleveland? Is Arizona going to be the Cleveland of this season, where there's just going to be 17 quarterbacks there? It's going to become a reality show. Everybody just looking for a job. Is that why are we trying to do that to our friends watching us on My Family Sports in Arizona? We love you guys down there in Phoenix. Why do we want to do this to them? Now they're good people down there. Cardinals fans are good fans. And now that you want to dump, yesterday's soiled goods and Anthony Richardson on them.
Anthony Richardson is a guy who you could get on a very cheap deal, especially if you're one of these teams like Miami, like Arizona. If you're still trying to figure out what you got in some young pieces, you're probably going to be selling off your veterans at the deadline. Why not take a shot?
Yeah,
and if it goes poorly, you get a better draft pick out of it.
Sure. Let's just throw anything at the wall, see what works. So every year they do this NFL Players Association player survey, and they make it public. This year's the last year they're making it public, by the way. Well, at least that's what they're saying. They're saying
they weren't even supposed to make it public this year. They bargained in the offseason to never make it public again, and someone's leaked it.
So here we go. We've got the latest annual player survey reports ranking the teams from first to last in terms of who the best is, in terms of how all the amenities, how they treat players, just an overall peek at who the best teams are in the league. And apparently it doesn't mean all that much, because the Miami Dolphins were number one in terms of grades, which means, hey, we're great at how we treat our players and culture and all that, but we still can't win. And the Steelers were dead last on the list this year, number 32, and they went to the playoffs. So, whatever you want to make of that, Sam, go ahead. Have fun with it.
I mean, there are plenty of stories that are going viral out of this, right? You've seen all the things about this team didn't provide 3 square meals a day, which is ridiculous when you're talking about professional athletes, and yada, yada, yada. This team had to walk across an active street to go to practice, which I still think is ridiculous. But the thing that stood out to me, Jason, in looking through all of these was actually the Green Bay Packers. And you wouldn't notice it off rip because they're not all the way at the bottom. I believe they're 22nd or something like that. They've fallen 17 spots since the last time one of these was made public last season.
Yeah.
And it is the I read somewhere it's the largest year-over-year fall that we've seen in over a decade of them doing this. It is crazy what the Packers did this offseason to just apparently stop caring about their players.
Yeah. Woody Johnson, by the way, was the one who was most outspoken against the NFLPA report cards after the Jets were 29th last year in the survey. I wonder, I just, if you're a free agent and it comes down to dollars and cents and going to a particular team, how much are you looking at this? How much are you ultimately making your decision based on a survey like this? I wonder. I'd be curious to talk to a player here in the offseason and kind of get their sense for how much something like that matters, Sam. Because I still think, if the money's right, you're just going where the money is.
Yeah, well, I also think that
so you got to walk through a crosswalk. I mean, my God.
But there are parts of it, right, Jason, that aren't accounted for within this survey that may influence them as well. For instance, I'm sure it's a lot more fun to play football in Miami, Florida, than it is to play football in Green Bay, Wisconsin, just because there's probably more to do.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. But certainly not a good look for the Steelers finishing dead last. We're coming back with Robert Littal, the founder of Black Sports Online. Joins us every Friday. Good to have you all with us on this Friday. And always good to have this guy with us, because if it is a Friday, we're talking to Robert Littal. The founder of Black Sports Online joins us every week on the show to recap some of the top stories of the week. And in this case, talk about one that, other than me talking about it in the big story for a couple of minutes yesterday, we haven't really gotten into. And I'm interested to get your thoughts on it, Robert Littal. Brendan Carr, the head of the FCC, who was in the news for all the, Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel stuff, and all these different headlines that he'd probably not rather be in the news for, or maybe he does. An interesting story that came across my desk yesterday or the night before about the FCC basically going after the migration of play-by-play over to streaming. And my first thought on this, and they're going to have a public comment thing, and they put out a release on it, and all of that. And we'll see where it winds up going. Because it could be a seismic shift depending on how the FCC gets involved in this. And it could ultimately become a legal battle and all of that. But what I'm curious is, who are they trying to serve here? Because I don't believe this is some altruistic thing where, the FCC is looking out for the consumer and the little guy who's got to pay all this money to streaming platforms to watch their play-by-play. I don't think they care. So my question to you is, when you go, when you drill down into it and get away from the 50,000-foot view, who are they really trying to serve by getting play-by-play, if not off of streaming, into a place where people can watch it on broadcast?
Well, I think actually it goes a little deeper than that. I think they don't necessarily have a problem with, like, say, your major, massive, streaming service, Disney Plus or ESPN, of course. Sure, what they have a problem with is the YouTuber or, someone independent that's using this, using a game or something that, to take away from the major corporations. I always think they're pro-billionaires, right? So, let's say you make a channel, right? It's a really good channel, and you do play-by-play of the hockey games, the Vegas, games. You're talking while the games are on, and hundreds of thousands of people are coming to your stream because now you're taking away not just from the broadcast, you're taking away from the streaming services as well. So I think this is just another way that they're trying to protect the billionaires and not giving us, the consumer, as many options. They want to narrow our options, so we have to pay for what they want us to pay for.
I wonder how much of it is about the NFL. Because, let's be honest, who's watching, that many weeknight, Thursday night games of baseball on name your local channel of choice? We see what's happening to all the RSNs. RSNs are going the way of the dodo. I wonder how much of it has to do with the NFL and how much the NFL props up the big networks, your CBS, your local CBS, your local Fox, your local NBC. I wonder how much it has to do with those local broadcasters and the Nexstars and Tegnas and Grays of the world and the Sinclairs of the world who are coming in and saying, look, the more of this stuff we're losing, the more revenue, we're not going to be able to keep our doors open.
Well, if you notice, the NFL, one thing that they're very different about with the NBA is the NBA has embraced independent media using highlights. I think social media as a way to prop up, the league and everything. Whereas the NFL, if you post a highlight, they're coming after you. And they've been coming after people, for years for that. They, like you said, they do not want it outside of their bubble. And maybe because their bubble, as far as the networks are concerned, is kind of the last thing that they have where people still watch on linear TV. I think when it comes to series and TV shows and everything else, people wait till it's on the streaming so they can watch it when the 7 o'clock, viewing to watch Archie Bunker or MASH or Seinfeld or Friends or whatever. That doesn't happen anymore. It's okay. I catch it, on, whatever. I catch it on this when I can. Oh, I binge watch it when the season is over. Sports is the live sports. It's kind of the last, the last of the horizon of network television.
Yeah, it certainly is. Megan Rapinoe saying this week that after this whole thing that happened with Team USA and the hockey and
wow.
Kash Patel, as Sam Yarnell said, looking like a Make-A-Wish kid in the locker room. Megan Rapinoe said, I wouldn't allow Kash Patel or Donald Trump into a locker room after a game. Interesting thoughts. I talked about this yesterday on the show, the idea of athletes as props. Yeah. And I don't think we've ever seen it utilized more politically than we're seeing it right now, this idea of athletes, both professional, collegiate, being used as props in politics.
Yeah, I mean, you just hit the nail. You're right on it. I mean, that's exactly it. It's odd. Well, not odd, but it's disheartening to me because it should just be you should just be happy they won the gold medal. That's great. That's awesome, right? But as soon as they win, you see it, creep into social media. Oh man, these are the real Americans and stuff like that. Then you see the social media. You see what's happening with the politics and stuff, and they lean into it. And then you see what with the Chuck using the AI to talk about the Canadians. It's like it used to just, saw the same thing with the NFL with the Bad Bunny and stuff. It used to be we could watch the games and they were kind of separate from life, separate from reality, something we all could be proud of. But now it's like you almost have to take a side. Now, with that being said, I do not know if you can stop the president of the United States or the head of the FBI from walking into anything. I would like to see that.
The FBI, the head of the FBI, I think you could.
The FBI, the head of the FBI.
He's in another country. He's not even. It's not like he's in the U.S.
In another country. But let's say it's the World Cup and they won, here or whatever. It would be interesting. I mean, but that's where we're at right now, where that wouldn't even be a thing under the Obama administration. Everybody be like, cool, Obama's coming in, Michelle coming in. It would be normal. It wouldn't be a big deal. But everything is a big deal now. And sports has crossed over into politics so much they can't be detached.
No, they can't. And watching the way this is all played out over the last week has been fascinating. With the State of the Union and Connor Hallebuck and the Congressional Medal of Freedom, with the Hughes brothers, and then the Hughes brothers' mom actually works for USA Women's Hockey, which is kind of this crazy dynamic to all of this. It tells you how incestuous the world of USA Hockey is in that regard. We got more we're going to talk about with our friend Robert Littal, the founder of Black Sports Online, hangs out with us every week on the show. I want to get into something that really got me excited. That's going to happen in the NBA next week. And speaking of the NBA, Stephen A. Smith is talking about LeBron James. We'll get to it next. All right. A few more minutes with our friend Robert Littal, the founder of Black Sports Online, joins us every week here on SportsWrap. Help us make sense of the top stories of the week. I'm not going to lie. I am giddy. Positively giddy about this announcement by the NBA on NBC. Because they're doing a throwback night on March 3rd, next week, where you're going to get Bob Costas calling a game with the czar of the telestrator, Mike Fratello. You're going to get PJ Carlissimo back. You're getting Hannah Storm back for a night. No Steve Snapper Jones, unfortunately. But to me, this is really cool. And kudos, by the way, to ESPN as well for letting their guys and women in this case, and Hannah Storm, go do this for a night over at NBC and just give all of us who long for some nostalgia a night where we can kind of relive our teenage years watching the NBA on NBC. I think this is great.
I think the worst thing that the NBA has done is not have rotating, I would say, rights to the NBA finals. Because I just think, with NBC and Prime, video to it, I think they're doing a good job as well. It's just been a breath of fresh air. Let's put it like that. And I think, the fact that people are into this, I think it's been new. It's been interesting. It would have been really cool if Bob Costas would have been doing the finals, this year or something like that. Instead of, like you said, we get the same old blowhards that we've been getting at.
Mike Breen's really good, though. Come on. Mike Breen's really
you still got to get Kendrick Perkins and, the halftime. Now, there will be some inside the NBA on there, so, maybe that will help a little bit. But, like you said, I think the reason I think we're all so much into nostalgia is because the current times aren't great. So we're trying to grab onto things, in our past that made us happy, because it's not a lot of happy times going on, in current society.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I'm curious to see how Costas in his 70s keeps up. NBA is not an easy. NBA moves fast.
Fratello's pretty up there too, but
Fratello still does games. He still does games.
I think the Clippers or something,
yes.
right?
Yeah, he still does. He still does.
I've watched him a couple of times, so he's still sharp.
But I'm curious to see how Bob Costas does. As
Just do the intro,
as
Bob.
a one-off. No, but they're gonna have him do
the whole thing.
That's what I'm saying. That's not easy.
Get Magic Johnson back there to give us a really boring and
Isaiah Thomas will be on the broadcast as well. That's another one I forgot. Isaiah's gonna get a crack to do some of that broadcast.
Isaiah was really good. I always thought Isaiah was good.
Yeah, it should be really interesting to watch. All right, Stephen A. Smith, a guest of Graham Bensinger on his show, my former colleague from way long time ago back at Sirius when he was just like a teenager. Talking to Stephen A. Smith, and Stephen A. Smith just can't quit LeBron. And as I texted you, I said, Stephen A. needs LeBron a hell of a lot more than LeBron needs Stephen A. Smith. He's the foil for Stephen A. Smith, I guess you could say. And what did you make of his comments with regard to, LeBron tried to get him, I don't know if he said he tried to get him fired, but tried to get action taken against him. What did you make of Stephen A.'s most recent comments about LeBron?
I feel like LeBron made a strategic mistake. It's a mistake that he never made with Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless talked about LeBron for 20 plus years, almost every day. And he never said anything about him. He never gave him that end to talk about him all the time. I don't know if it's because Stephen A. is black. I don't know if it was because he was talking about his son. But whatever it was, that tipping point for him to confront Stephen A. has given Stephen A. this opening to basically talk about him all the time. And he's using him, like a lot of media people do, like you said, for props. For attention. So when he goes on this show, everybody knows, hey, a good if any topic is going to get attention, it's the LeBron one. So we're going to ask him about it. And he's not shy of saying that I don't like this man. He don't like me and stuff. Even though it's the same thing regurgitated over and over again, people still report on it.
Yeah, they certainly do. And I get the sense now LeBron's at the point where he's not going to talk about it anymore. Where I think he's probably learned his lesson, and he's just gonna leave it alone. That's my sense.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think it was because for all of Skip's, bluster, it never really took on Bron personally. You know what I mean? Like, never talked, the family man, the wife, the kids. It was always basketball, the break and all of that stuff like that. I think, with LeBron, and just like any person, you talk about somebody's family, son, wife, kids, you're going to have a different reaction to that. And I think he maybe took it. He didn't understand that this is exactly what Stephen A. wanted.
I talked about it briefly, just to throw this in here in the last minute. about this, the White House bringing together all these different sports leaders to try and fix college sports. Hey, by the way, fix my health care. Fix it so that it doesn't cost me $1 zillion when I have to go to a doctor. Fix that first, then worry about fixing college sports. But I'm curious to get your thoughts when you look at the list of who's been invited and the idea that the White House is getting involved in this. Does this go anywhere?
No, it's just a PR situation. I mean, what is Tiger Woods gonna help with college, sports? No offense to Tiger. I mean, this is a golf con. I mean, I think Tim Tebow actually does, I like Tim Tebow. I think he has strong feelings about a lot of
Nick
stuff.
Saban.
I think he's a good dude.
I think Nick Saban.
Nick Saban, and but most of it is just to make Trump look good. And like you said, I think most of the stuff that Trump does is to distract you from, like you said, the more serious things that are going on in our country. So it's a thing. If you want to impress me, really invite some people that aren't just your buddies, and that's something that we know is never going to happen.
They're not inviting a single current coach. I mean, which is just. I mean, if you want to fix it, let's get some of the people in the room.
Invite Marcus Freeman or somebody.
Yeah, I agree. Robert Littal, the founder of Black Sports Online. Check him out there. Catch him on X as well at BSO. Always appreciate you, my friend. Have a great week. Welcome back. Coming up in 10 minutes, we'll wrap it up with some odds and ends. But if it's a Friday on SportsWrap, it can only mean one thing. This guy is here. Tino Patino, SiriusXM NASCAR Radio, NASCAR Betting Insider. Also, you can see him on Tubi on the weekends. It's a NASCAR Friday, Tino Patino. Let's do it.
Go.
Well, if I had told you before the season started that Tyler Reddick was going to win the first two races of the Cup Series season, you probably would have had me tested for like my blood alcohol content. You would have thought I was nuts, but here we are. Tyler Reddick wins again last week. What sticks out to you from the two wins for him to start the year?
The fact that he's done it as early as he has. Now, I wouldn't have been super surprised had you told me 2 wins in the first 5 to 6 races. I could see that from Tyler Reddick. I knew he was going to come back strong. Disappointing season last year, but this is the same driver that 3 wins a couple years ago, won the regular season championship. I mentioned it over the offseason, the fact that I feel like he's mastered every track, and this was a sort of showcase that he's there on the super speedways, right? Daytona 500, right place, right time, was there at the end, but Atlanta, he starts at the front and really stayed there all day, got involved in an accident, and still was able to make the most of it. I think this is going to be what you look back on as an incredible year for the team. What we saw out of Christopher Bell last year when he won 3 straight races, almost 4, the way the schedule lined up for him specifically was perfect because he won at COTA, Phoenix, Vegas, he had a chance. My point is, those tracks he was very comfortable at, and they really fit his driving style. Well, that's what's happening here now for Tyler Reddick, right? Obviously, we're going to talk about SVG in a couple of seconds, but if it's not him, it could very well be Tyler Reddick winning 3, maybe 4 races in a row.
Then why is it, with all that talk about how great a driver he is, when I go look at the NASCAR futures for the Cup Series Championship outright winner, I got to go all the way down to like 11-1 to find Tyler Reddick, despite the fact that he's won the first 2 races of the season. What does that tell you?
Yeah, well, that tells me great value, honestly. I think a lot of people may not be considering these first 2 races to mean that much because they're super speedway races, right? The Daytona 500 and Atlanta. But I think once he continues to knock these off, that number's obviously going to go down. This is someone that's been in the position before as well. 2 years ago, championship 4 contender. So to me, that number does surprise me a lot. And I think as the races and the season continues on, it's just going to keep dropping.
All right, we call it the Shane Van Gisbergen Memorial because every road race he's like plus 110. He's basically even money going into this race on Sunday. Interesting that Connor Zilic is getting so much love as well. Tell me why we're seeing so much love for Connor.
Well, so the reason we're seeing so much love for Connor, not only do people compare him to the next great best driver of all time like Jeff Gordon, so that's going to get a lot of intrigue for those that may not tune in every week, but it's the fact that he grew up racing on these road courses, go-karting, and we saw his performance last year in the O'Reilly series, what was then the Xfinity series, the lower mid-tier level of motorsports here for NASCAR, and he was going up against SVG. And he was winning multiple times. So to me, when you put those guys in the same equipment, in the same series, they were even. And if not even, Zilich was better. Now, I don't know if Zilich is going to be better in a cup car immediately, right? It's not his first start in this racetrack. So last year he got his first start at this track. That helps me get behind him a little bit more based off of him having experience in this car at this track. But SVG, I think it's just a different level in this specific car. But that's why Connor Zilich is just so highly talented, and his results when put up against the best in a different series showcase why.
And it was Christopher Bell that won this race last year, right?
Yes.
So I will say, I'm going to pit you up against Jerry Bonkowski, who comes on Mondays to recap the race. He made a bold prediction on Monday's show. He said he predicts that Shane Van Gisbergen will not win this race. So I ask you, Shane Van Gisbergen or the field?
SVG for me.
Wow, over the field.
Over the field, and the reason why is these were the same sort of narratives we were pushing last season after every single road course race. I was there in person, Watkins Glen, and people were trying to say, oh, Cup drivers have more experience on this specific track. SVG doesn't need it as much as so-and-so. No. If anything, he needs this race more. We look at the chase format now and for the playoffs and how this stuff works for the NASCAR Cup Series point standings. You need to win in order to get those points. And it's not like you're locked into the playoffs anymore. Those 5 road course wins, the last 5 in a row that SVG has won, not only were they dominant, 5, 7, 10-second victories, which we do not see on a given basis in the Cup Series anymore, but the laps led on road courses in 2025, 301. The next best was 42. So to me, I understand why some may say that. This was his worst road course of the year last year, but it was also his first one. To me, I just don't want to overthink it. I think this is SVG. The fact that we can get him at plus money, I know this is even crazier to say with everything that can go on in a NASCAR race, but this may be the last time we can get him at plus money ever for a road course.
Look, you know how I feel about SVG because he doesn't perform as well on ovals, but through the first 2 races of this year, particularly last week, he had a top 10 finish, didn't he?
Yeah, and that's the thing. He's getting better at the ovals. I would be, frustrated if he was dominating so much on road courses and not having any improvement on the ovals, but he is. And I think if he can continue to get the road course wins, last year, 5 top 5s in the road courses, swept all of them in the top 10. No one else is really doing that except for Christopher Bell. So my point is this, with SVG this weekend, bet him to win this race outright, and you can cover that play by betting Toyota to win the race. Obviously, SVG's a Chevy, but Toyota winning entirely can cover it if a disaster happens and SVG doesn't get it done.
That is Tino Patino dispensing advice if you're looking to bet the race this weekend with Shane Van Gisbergen trying to win another road course race. Always appreciate it, my friend. We'll be watching you this weekend and listening as well.
Thank you.
All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for another week. Before we do, a few reminders. SportsWrap weekends. Available on many of these same affiliates. If not, check your local listing for time and schedule. It could be on another station within your market, usually a sister station, something like that. So make sure to subscribe. Make sure to go and check out the weekend show. 30 minutes, best of everything we talked about during the week. Kyle Troop, my conversation with the PBA Tour star, will be part of that show. I can promise you that. Sports Wrap with Jason Page, the podcast, audio version of this show, Monday through Friday, 45 minutes, available wherever you get your podcasts. Also, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast, if you subscribe, you'll be able to get exclusive podcasts that are just some of the conversations we have throughout the week, whether it's Kurt Heelan, who comes on the show every week to talk about the NBA. When Kyle Troop comes on, we put the entire conversation. So if anything is missing that you don't get to see or watch or listen to because we run out of time during the week during the Monday through Friday show, we put it all into the podcast, these special podcasts that are available. Go and subscribe. Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel, Monday through Friday TV version of the show available for you there. It is fantastic. 45 minutes, commercial free. go and check it out on our YouTube channel. Also, SportsWrap Shorts available there. 1 to 3 minute long videos covering the top stories of the day when they break. We've been on a bit of a hiatus this week. A lot of turmoil going on around in my life with obviously with Dookie's passing away and just kind of recalibrating our lives a little bit here over the last week. We'll get back on those, so make sure to go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. SportsWrap Shorts also available on our TikTok, SportsWrap Jason page, and on our Instagram, SportsWrap Jason page. And now, without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends. Sam Yarnell, we got to get you doing SportsWrap Shorts. I want to see what a Sam Yarnell SportsWrap short would look like. Just saying. I want to see it.
Fiery. I'll tell you
Fiery.
that. Right. I got to make my entire point in a minute. Oh, gosh.
Well, I mean, if it doesn't have highlights in it, you can go up to 3 minutes. We keep them short for the ones with highlights because of, copyright and all that stuff.
Whenever I'm talking, Jason Page, a highlight is always involved.
Oh, there it is. Just as we spoke yesterday on the show and how I was adamant that Aaron Judge was going to hit a zillion home runs and have a higher batting average because he knows the strike zone better than anybody, Sam Yarnell made it a point to text me yesterday. The only time Sam Yarnell texts me, by the way, is when he wants to brag about something.
That's
the only
not
time
true.
I hear from Sam Yarnell.
Better. I've been better lately because a couple weeks ago you brought up on the show that I don't ever text you back, and I made a point to text you back more frequently these days.
On your screen is Aaron Judge taking a called strike 3 and tapping the hat. This is what I think we should do that every now on the show. Whenever we want to challenge something that somebody is saying on the show, we're just going to tap our head. Aaron Judge strikes out yesterday, and he challenges, and it didn't go his way, so there you go. Aaron Judge, I don't know if it's his first one or not. Certainly the first one I've seen. Yankees 16-13 on challenges. 16 correct, 13 wrong on challenges this year so far in spring training.
Yeah, it's going to take some for a couple of players, right? And this is like what we talked about the other day, Jason. It's these guys who are abnormally sized professional athletes. That's a little bit of an oxymoron. But your Jose Altuves of the world, your Aaron Judges of the world, the guys who are on the extremes of the height spectrum in Major League Baseball, those are the ones who you need to keep a very close eye on with relation to this ABS challenge system. You'll notice on this Judge pitch that he challenged, it wasn't even close. It was like very clearly a strike. Any part of the ball touches the zone and it's a strike, and the ball is more than halfway in the strike zone for Aaron Judge. It's going to take some relearning of the strike zone for these guys who are different sized because Major League Baseball conformed everyone's strike zone to their individual size.
Abnormally sized. Congratulations, Con Kneppel. History in the NBA last night. 209, I think, three-pointers now. He broke the all-time rookie record, and he did it in like less than 60 games, Sam. So that record doesn't belong to Stephen Curry. It doesn't belong to Reggie Miller. It doesn't belong to, Michael Adams or name your three-point shooter of choice. It belongs for a rookie to Con Kneppel, who continues to climb the charts when it comes to the Rookie of the Year voting, potentially.
He's right there. Climb the charts. He's right there. He's plus 110.
Yes.
I mean, this will go down in history as an all-time letdown of a season out of the Dallas Mavericks. That is without question. Them not getting Cooper Flagg to 65 games, whether it be because they couldn't keep him healthy enough or because they're in this tank off or whatever you want to call it, is almost... It's unforgivable to the sport of basketball what the Dallas Mavericks are doing here. If they end up with a pick that is not inside the top 5 and Cooper Flagg does not win Rookie of the Year, they might have to fire the new GM. Like Nico Harrison clearly wasn't the problem.
By the way, Charlotte right now, the last team in the play-in, and having something to play for and being in that mix is certainly helping raise his profile here as we go down the stretch. So congratulations, Con Kneppel. When we talked about this rookie class, I don't know how many people thought we'd be talking about him 60 games into the season, but here we are. It's going to wrap it up. Yeah, go ahead, real quick.
That Charlotte team, they're just dangerous, man. They look good.
Yeah, they look like they're starting to come together. And we talk about all these teams building for success in the future. We don't talk about Charlotte nearly enough. It's going to wrap it up for us. Thank you to Robert Littal, Tino Patino, you, Sam Yarnell, all of you at home for watching. Enjoy Sports Wrap weekends. Otherwise, we'll see you back here on Monday for an all-new edition of Sports Wrap. I'm Jason Page. Bye-bye.